Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new to my channel, I'm Kay Ashbridge, and if you're returning and you're a subscriber, thank you so much for your support. So today we're going to talk about the Death card in Tarot. That's Tarot's key number 13 in the Major Arcana, and this is a card that is really quite scary to most people. You know, I've done wellness fairs and psychic fairs where people will walk by my booth with this is my background here, and I've had people say, I am very curious, but it's the Death card, that keeps them from actually having a tarot reading. I get it. It's a scary to look at card. But before we get into the imagery of this card, let's just have a quick talk about tarot and the language of archetypes. It's really helpful to understand that tarot is a symbolic mirror of the human experience. Each card, especially the Major Arcana, represents an archetype, a universal pattern or energy that lives within all of us. Archetypes are ancient and timeless. They show up across cultures, mythologies, and spiritual traditions. We see archetypes in the hero, the mother, the seeker, the fool, the sage, and yes, in the Death card. These archetypes, they're not just characters in a story. They are living patterns that help us understand ourselves and our journey through this life. When an archetype appears in a reading, it's inviting you to recognize that part of yourself and work with it consciously. Okay, so now let's explore the image of the Death card and what the meaning is. We're using the Waite-Smith Tarot deck as our example. So we see here in the Death card, there's Death riding on a white horse. And white in the tarot represents purity of thought and spirit. All right, Death is holding a banner, and on the banner is the white 5-petaled rose that represents the planet Mars. That's a fiery planet, and we know that fire can purify and blaze a trail for us, or fire can destroy and ruin. So it's like a double-edged sword. And when we're looking at this Death card, it's not just about death or endings, and it's not specifically about a physical death of life. The Death card in tarot represents endings and beginnings. It represents the end of a cycle, a completion of one pattern or cycle that has ended, heralding a new cycle coming in. That's what the Death card is all about. It's more about death, birth, and rebirth. So as we get into this imagery, here comes Death riding on a white horse, and it's trampled over this king. So here's this dead king on the ground, finished, the end of an era. You see the crown has come off of the king's head. Could be the death of an ego, all right? And here is the Death in front of this young child and a maiden, and the child's looking on curiously, and the maiden's looking away in fear. She can't bear to look. But then we see a bishop or a priest in front of Death with their hands held in prayer. So could this be acknowledging a blessing in disguise? As difficult as endings are, they can sometimes be welcome because it was needed. So the ending could be the end of a relationship, the end of negative thinking, could be the end of resentment and the beginning of forgiveness. So see where we're going here with the Death card? In my experience, the Death card doesn't show up when someone's ready for their transition out of this life. The Death card, it shows up when someone's ready for retirement, or someone is changing jobs, or leaving a relationship. So the Death card represents endings, and without an ending, there's no room for a beginning, right? That's where the blessing in disguise comes, with the bishop holding their hands in prayer. Okay, and what else do we notice in this card? In the background, you see the waterfalls, massive waterfalls. Okay, water representing feelings and emotions. And when I look at this card and I see that waterfall, it makes me ponder our collective conscious and how we as humanity navigate through endings and beginnings, and that it's a culmination, a process. As I was pondering this card, I was in my garden deadheading daisies and other flowers and plants, and I have a habit of taking at least half of that and putting it back into the soil and, you know, mixing it around and creating its own compost. And as I was doing this, there was some old stuff from a month or so ago, and it kind of had a little smell, and I realized, yeah, the compost is working. It's kind of smelling, it's rotting, but it's doing its job. It's creating new, fresh nutrients for this plant. So I think about the death card like that as well. Sometimes it's the compost of life, and without the compost, we wouldn't have room for new growth, right? So as I look at this waterfall in the background of this death card, you know, water coming, raining, coming through the clouds and into our rivers and into the ocean and evaporating back into the clouds and bringing rain. So it's this continual cycle. And, you know, death also is the twin sibling of life. Another aspect of this card that you see in the background is that sun coming up. So you see the path toward the sun, and there's a pillar on each side, and the sun is rising. The story of the death card with the sun is that the sun is continually in its rising state. It never reaches its zenith. It's continually rising, as are we humans, spiritually rising to hopefully the heights of our heights. So, and the two pillars between the sun, that represents death and birth. And really it represents the duality of this plane that we live in. And that our best bet is to stay in the middle ground, not go too far into worry or too far into bliss, but be centered, aware, and productive, really. So, what else do we see in this card? Another aspect of this death card in correspondence with the zodiac is that the death card is represented by the sign of Scorpio. And Scorpio is known as the scorpion, the lizard, the eagle, or the phoenix. The phoenix rising up out of its ashes speaks to death and rebirth. Again, that's what this card is all about, death and rebirth, endings and beginnings. So the fundamental meaning of the death card in tarot is about transformation and regeneration, birth, even death of the ego, and renewal of spirit. There's another image in the death card. It's in the forefront. It's very subtle. It's near the horse's hoof on the ground, and it's a snail. Okay, so the snail, that's a real subtle image here on this death card. So the imagery is pretty stark and pretty clear, but then we have this snail. So the snail, to me, it represents that, you know, change can be gradual. The snail is not in a hurry, it doesn't move fast, but it continuously moves forward. It will always move forward. And, you know, the snail also represents vulnerability, the way we protect ourselves and how and why. Well, the snail carries its home on its back. So it's very cautious and very protective of what's going on around it. And, you know, we can see that in our own psyches and how many of us act toward death. It's scary. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to acknowledge it. Yet it is a process of this life that we live in. Well, the snail is very close to the earth. That's its organic, natural rhythms and cycles. It's a slow mover. It's not rushing. It's kind of trying to remind us, I think, the snail, to enjoy every moment, because eventually death will come. And isn't it better to live in the here and the now and enjoy what we do have rather than worry about what the future holds? If you liked my video, please give it a thumbs up, share it, and if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.